Hey everyone, I am Basant from Smart Guide. In this video, I'm going to show you few tips for reclaiming your storage space on Windows machine. If you are on Windows machine and your space is limited, in that case, if the system utilizes a lot of space on the back end, you may not get space you need for your action. In that case, I'm going to show you a couple of tips how can you remove and what are the different aspects that consumes the lot of space on the back end. Let's dive into it. For that, let me remote to my Windows machine and then I can show you everything. This is my Windows machine here, and I have Windows 10. I recently upgraded from Windows 10 1700 something build to 1900 something build. So during the upgrade, I have noticed that a couple of gigabytes are lost from my hard drive. There's a reason why it's lost, and I think like this is the appropriate idea for many of the users that you are utilizing and doing day-to-day updates of the Windows update. And let's look at that, and I'll talk about a few other things like how to reclaim all these system related files and some other things. First of all, the way you can look at the files and unused partition, unused spaces is by going through the disk management that you can access either from the Windows Start menu. One second, if you go to the search and search for manage, and then you see computer management, and if you click on that, you'll get this page here over here. And there's another way. If you are Windows 7 user, you can right click on my computer, and if you are Windows 10 user, open any folder and then right click on the PC, this PC on the left sidebar. And then from there choose manage, and once you do that, you'll reach this page, and if you see down the road on the left panel, there's disk management, and it shows all the disk that you have, all the partition that you have on your device. And if you see here a couple of things, I don't even recognize this disk 0, a couple of disk 0 like 260, 144, I don't know what is that, 3.36.6. I haven't created that, but it's created by the system, and if I don't have enough space, I may be able to reclaim that as a storage. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And be sure that whenever you delete, think twice or more at least, because if you delete and you cannot get it back, sometimes you might delete a system related file and your software may crash. Anything might happen, so before you delete, think at least twice. So think twice, delete once. That's the phrase I would say. Okay, and there are a couple of aspects that you may not get what space or the storage is advertised. One thing is manufacturer doesn't always provide whatever they are advertising. For example, if you think of 64 gigabyte memory card, it doesn't actually have 64 gigabyte. That advertisement is 64, but actually storage space that's available for user is always less, maybe 59, 58. It depends on the manufacturer. Again, it's not exact on every manufacturer, and it's different on every memory card. you won't find any memory card that has equal space even if it says 64. So that's the thing, one thing that you may not get exactly advertised one. Another is partitions. There are many partitions on the Windows system. It's available, it's applicable for the Mac also, but the way we can reclaim is different, so I'm not going to talk about MacBook. There are many partitions that can be utilized only by the system, but you cannot see those, and that's consuming a lot of space in the back end. Another is system recovery and the protection, like if you set up the regular system recovery or the restore points, then it consumes a lot of space on the back end. You don't see that, but it is actually consume your space. And there are some files that are created by system, like Hibernate file and the in the page files. So the Hibernate file is usually the half of the RAM. If you have 8 GB of RAM, it will be approximately 4 GB of Hibernate file. So that you can get rid of if you really into and if you really need. But if you don't need, then you don't need to delete that because it's a system file and it used by system. This file can be recreated by the system, so even deleting should not impact much. But I do not recommend to delete any of the system file if you don't have urgent need. If you have 1 TB of storage and you are trying to make this free couple of gigabyte, that doesn't make sense. But if you have 256 gigabyte storage and system is consuming 250 and you need more space, in that case you may be able to do that, and you might need to do that. So, and there's another way, another thing that consumes a lot of space, that's cluster size. With cluster size, it depends on the size of the cluster, the storage consumed by the actual file. Sometimes there is a strange scenario, like your file size is actually smaller, but it will take the huge space on the disk. That's because of the cluster size. For example, if you have one, let me show you example rather than just talking. Let me show you example of this file. This is just text file, and it's just 1 KB on actual size. The actual size of the file is 1.01 KB, actually 1.039 bytes, 1039 bytes, and the size it's taking on the hard drive is 4 times the actual size, 4096 byte. Because my system currently has 4096 bytes cluster size. The cluster size of my system is 4096. That means, and one other thing is, because the file cannot, multiple file can share single cluster, that's why it's happening. The way we can remove this kind of scenario is we can reformat the disk or the drive that you want, and set the cluster size of smaller than most files. Like if most of my files are 1 KB, then I may be able to set 1 KB of the cluster size. But if most of the files are 512 then 512 bytes, then it's good to set 512 byte. Not in, even in other scenario, it's good to set 512 bytes. Only thing is it may have lagging performance on the storage side, so that's the only thing, but it's still good to go, good to have 512 bytes of the cluster. In this scenario, this 1 KB file will utilize 2 cluster. In that case, if I have 512 bytes of cluster, in that case 1 KB of file, that needs 2 cluster. But if you have and just in this scenario I have 4 KB of cluster size and my file is 1 KB. It's consuming 4 times and the 3 KB is lost. And similarly you may have so many 1 KB files and let's say 100 1 KB files. In that case 300 times 3 KB, that's that much space may be lost. That's just an example. So to get rid of that scenario, you can just reformat all the hard drive, your disk drive using the computer management from here again. Computer management. From here you can select the partition you want to format and then choose format. When you try to do that, you'll have option to select the cluster size. So at that time choose 512. 512 is about the about good size, and it should not have huge performance impact, but do not make it very low like 1 byte 2 byte. That's huge. You don't even need 1 byte 2 byte nowadays. Smallest file possible are 1 KB or at least half KB. So 512 should be enough. And that's one thing. And one other thing I mentioned earlier, Hibernate file and page file, you can get rid of that as well if you really need. For that, open command prompt, not from here, cancel. Open command prompt cmd.exe and do run as admin and a task, and then type in powerconf cfg power cfg -h off, Hibernate off. If you hit this setting, it will turn off the hibernation of your PC. So in that case you can after that you can remove the Hibernate file. So that's way you can get rid of Hibernate files. That's system file again. And to reformat or see what is used by all these disk and drive, there are many third-party tools. One of that is EASE, EASE tool that help you to look for the files and then remove if need, and keep it if you don't want to remove. So feel free to use that, or you can do it manually always, just like that, one by one, and just like formatting. But before doing anything, please save your data onto secondary drive. So that's about it. And one other thing is I haven't talked yet is the file, I mean the storage that is lost during the upgrade. If you upgraded Windows version from previous to the next version, you may realize that a lot of space has been lost on your side, and that's because Windows utilize the old Windows on the back end. It save it for at least a month and then delete, but for that month you may get less space than the before. So in that case you can again remove that. For that, if in this scenario you can see that from here, but it doesn't mention what is it. You can see that from the disk cleanup utility. Disk cleanup utility, if you search here and disk cleanup, you can open that, and it asks you to choose the drive that you want to clean up. Choose C, D, E, whatever you have and whatever you want to clean up, and then there is option to select system file as well, and you have to select system file to see all the files and their size. And once you hit, may take a few minutes, so that's why I already executed that portion over here. And once you get the result, you'll see lot of files with different size. If you are seeing a smaller size, you don't need to worry about, but if you see used files like 694, that's huge file, and that's used by system error memory dump. That error dump, I may not need it, I can get rid of it, and it claims I can claim almost half gigabyte. That's good. And one other few other things are like 2.35 gigabytes download. Sometimes you download softwares for the installation. After installation, you don't need that .txt files or .msi files. You can get rid of that, and you can do that manually or from here. It doesn't matter, but the preferred way is always go through the disk cleanup. And you can also see here 36.9 gigabytes is used by previous Windows installation. I showed you that on the disk management. It wasn't specified what was it for, but here you can see it was for the previous Windows installation. You can see that from the C drive also. If you go here in C drive, and if you see all the way down, Windows and Windows.old, if you click on that and then choose property, it will show whole space that's utilized by Windows.old. That should be about the same size at 36.9 gigabyte. You cannot delete that from here because of the permission issue, but you can delete from here if you are in real need, immediate need. Note that system will automatically remove that after a certain amount of time, so maybe a month or 3 months depending on your Windows setup and the backup strategy. So that's about it, and if you have any question, let me know. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe and share my channel and videos, like my Facebook page, and don't forget to click on the bell icon next to subscribe button to get notified of my future videos. If you haven't watched my previous videos, go ahead and watch. Feel free to comment if you like to know something or have feedback for me. Until next video, have a good time. Bye bye.